Hello and welcome to the TMC Newsroom. Thanks for watching. My name is Rich Tehrani. We are in Boston, Massachusetts this week, and we are visiting with a number of the companies in the New England area, learning more about their technology, what's new, what's exciting, what innovations are in store. And on our program today is Alan Percy, who is the Director of Market Development at AudioCodes. Alan, how are you?
Very good. Thanks for having me today.
Well, likewise. Thanks for being here. We've been writing about AudioCodes for so long, at least 15 years, so I'm sure I know virtually everything that's happening in the company, but for those people that may not know, that may be new to the market or new to learning about your company, give us an overview.
Sure. Well, AudioCodes, as you mentioned, is now we're 17 years old already. Publicly traded company that specializes in voice over IP enabling technology. We're headquartered in Israel with about 400 of our employees in Israel and about 200 here stateside for a total count of about 600 employees. So it's great to be part of the enabling solution as we make this migration over to voice over IP and UC SIP-based solutions. So.
And I mean, the product line is from gateways to I remember early on in the voice over IP days, modules that
Right.
IPPBX vendors would put into their products to IP enable them.
Yeah, the history is kind of interesting. We started out as an algorithm company, and then slowly moved our way from just algorithms to chips, and eventually to modules, and then boards, and then all the way through to packaged systems. And we, of course, the core of our product line today is our media gateway line, and we've got IP phones, and what we're going to talk about hopefully today are enterprise session border controllers.
Sure, and you just launched an enterprise SBC channel on TMCnet.
That's correct, yep.
Which we love to have there. It's on the left-hand navigation of many of the pages. That's how people can find it. And so what sorts of information are you looking to see there?
Sure, well, what we're hoping to do with the enterprise session border controller, since it's a new product concept, it's relatively new to the market, is provide educational content to help people understand what is it, what does it do, where does it fit, et cetera.
So what are some of the differentiators of an enterprise versus a service provider SBC?
Sure. Well, originally the concept of a session border controller really was about providing connectivity or security for service providers at the core of their network. What we discovered a couple of years ago is that enterprises started to work with multiple service providers. They started looking at peering and other situations where they would have different SIP providers come into their business, so they needed similar protection for their enterprise network. Smaller version with a little bit different twist, being that they had to be interoperable with multiple service providers, where, of course, a service provider, when they choose a session border controller, they only have to be interoperable with themselves, all right? So, So what it essentially is it's a network element that would sit at the entry point or the point of demarcation for an enterprise, and allow multiple service providers to terminate their SIP trunking or hosted services to the premise and provide interoperability and security for those terminations.
Now, how did your company get involved in this space?
Yep. Kind of interesting, when we've been working in the media gateway role for a long time of allowing PSTN or TDM-based service providers to bring their services to businesses or enterprises. When our customers started looking at SIP solutions or SIP trunking, they came to us and said, we like the fact that with the media gateway that we've always been able to abstract away the public network. So they wanted to do the same thing with SIP trunking. They wanted to be able to not only terminate these services, but also basically abstract them away. So they didn't have to worry about the specific settings or security issues that might come from the network. So what we did is we invested in an acquisition in 2006 in the acquisition of NetRake, and that allowed us then to bring in some expertise and experience in the security and the interoperability space that we're able to then integrate into our gateway platforms and convert essentially our media gateways into a hybrid, which is a media gateway plus session border controller, and we call it an enterprise session border controller or enterprise SBC.
And do you see that integration continuing, where there aren't standalone products, but they're more integrated, or a single company providing them?
So what we found is that businesses are struggling with this transition right now. That they've had TDM trunking for a long time. They're dabbling or looking at SIP trunking or SIP peering, for example, and what they're trying to do is come up with a strategy that would let them move from the TDM trunking to SIP trunking without two separate vendors or two separate boxes or two separate devices, without the risk of a rip and replace. So what we're able to do with the enterprise session border controller is start somebody out with maybe their TDM trunking, like a regular gateway, and then through a software upgrade, add the SBC feature to the device, then help them make that migration over to SIP trunking, initially with both, so they can do both TDM and SIP at the same time, and then eventually they can move more and more of their traffic over to pure SIP.
Now, I've heard your marketing materials or senior marketing materials mention interoperability, survivability, and also security as functions of an enterprise SBC. Are there any one of those that's more important for an enterprise SBC?
You know, it's interesting. We ran a webinar last month on the topic, and we surveyed the attendees. We had phenomenal turnout, thanks to TMC's help. And essentially, as part of the survey, we asked the question, which of those three was most important to the participants? And surprisingly, the number one response was interoperability. We thought it was going to be security, but it turns out that interoperability really was most important to the current enterprise base.
Well, thank you again for that plug. I'm going to blush very soon. So, in terms of interop with carriers, which carriers are interoperable with the equipment right now?
Right.
Or yeah, I guess that's a proper way of phrasing that.
Yep. So one of the key things that we provide is this interoperability function, so that a business, if they've been using AudioCodes media gateways and they decide to use hosted or SIP trunking services on the network, again, we abstract that away, and we're able to do it through the certifications we've done with a SIP Forum and their SIP Connect program. Also, too, all BroadSoft or Metaswitch-based host service providers are now interoperable. And of course, there's far too many to list, but just giving examples like Verizon Business and XO and a whole long list of service providers that are based on those platforms we're interoperable with.
Fantastic. Now, can you talk a little bit about additions you've got to the product family?
Yeah, so matter of fact, we initially launched the solution based on three hardware platforms: our Mediant 800, which is fairly new, our Mediant 1000, which is our most popular media gateway, and our Mediant 3000 platform for enterprises. We recently added also our Mediant 5000 and 8000, and with this complete product line then, we can start all the way at 24 ports of SBC with a little Mediant 800, but we can go all the way up to 8,000 ports with our Mediant 8000. So we, anything in between, we can answer a solution. But one of the best benefits is that we can do this with a common hardware platform, common software platform, protocols, etc. So our service provider and our solution designers can choose anywhere along the line, and it's the same user interface, it's the same protocols, it's the same interfaces and management. So that reduces a lot of the training and a lot of the work that would normally have to go to if it were a mixed vendor environment.
Now, I'd say the SBC space in general is the most competitive market right now for next year. I've heard more vendors that are not necessarily major players in the SBC market tell me that next year they plan on taking major share from other vendors in the space. The question that I have for AudioCodes is, how are you uniquely positioned, and what benefits do you provide that others don't, that would I guess, encourage customers to choose your company to work with?
Sure. Well, the biggest one, the most obvious one, is that we have these hybrid platforms. It's both a gateway and an SBC in the same box. One of the a number of our competitors in the space are only SBCs, and so what happens is the customer is forced to, if they want to do a hybrid environment, to make the transition, they have to choose vendor A for maybe the SBC and vendor B for the gateway, and then they have to learn the two interfaces and figure out how to manage the two of them, get the two devices to work together. By moving our media gateway platform over with software upgrades to an SBC, we're able to take our existing customer base and new customers and start them out in a mixed environment with one device. And that's probably the key differentiator. And the second one, which as I mentioned previously, is the breadth of the product line. All the way from the small analog to the large, huge, from 24 to 8,000 ports with the same platform.
Very good. Thanks for being on the program, Alan. It was great to see you as always.
Yeah, good to see you too, Rich.